You have seen her as an actor for years. She has also directed the films Booksmart and Don't Worry, Darling. Tonight, you get to see her do both. Please give a warm Chicago welcome to Olivia Wilde.
Can you hear me? Yes. Oh, hi. Wow. Thank you. That was incredible. This is a huge honor for me, and I'm here on behalf of everyone from this movie. We are so excited that you guys are going to watch this on a 35mm print. Thank you to the Music Box. Thank you to A24 for facilitating that. It was a huge part of the dream of this movie. We really came together to make this movie like an experiment. We wanted it to feel like a play. We got together, we rehearsed for 2 weeks and workshop material together, and then we shot this film in order. It features some of my favorite actors in the world. They are so exciting, and I just can't wait for you to see them do this work. They're just brilliant. And I know that, God, I can't wait to tell them about what I'm looking at right now, because they'll be very excited. It's really an honor to be here at the festival. There's so many great movies playing here. I love this city. I love Chicago. I had I'll tell you why. I love Chicago because many years ago I got to come here to make a movie called Drinking Buddies, directed by Joe Swanberg, who is here tonight. I'm so grateful he's here. It means a lot to me. His film is closing the festival, and to be able to open the festival and have with Joe closing it, it just feels like this very serendipitous, beautiful circle of life. I'm very, very happy. So thank you, Chicago, for just being the best always. And I really hope you have fun and laugh and have a good time. I do hope you do the testimonials. So it's actually, we want foursomes. This is a 4G. And you don't even have to know each other. And sometimes it's better that way. And it'll be in the garden, I'm told, on the couch. And we just want to hear from you. So if you're down, go for it. Thank you. Thank you so, so much. Have a good time.
Not easy to play Thelonious Monk on an organ. That's impressive.
So this is your third film as a director, feature film.
Yes.
It's the first that you really took the lead as an actor as well, as a performer. That's two really big hats. I would love to hear how you navigated this project and holding both those hats.
Well, I think this was unique in that I was acting with such incredible people that it felt like we were gripped in this kind of collective hypnosis that made acting feel entirely effortless. Because when everyone else in the room believes something completely, you have an easier time believing it. And I think that we were all just so completely committed to this story that we all really wanted to tell, and we knew why we were telling it. It felt like, as some, you know, it was like a jazz quartet. I feel pretentious saying that because I don't know how to play an instrument and I don't know anything about jazz. But it feels right. I think it was like a jazz quartet. And it really, I can't say like, I found a way to direct and act that I could ever do again. I couldn't. It was so specific to this experience and these people.
I actually played the oboe, and there's an oboe joke in this movie, and I was like, you actually really need to be committed to play the oboe, so the joke's really funny. Everyone will say you sound like a duck, and it's like, you do sound like a duck. That's why I wanted to play the oboe. But you know, you mentioned it being like jazz and truly great acting, and I think this is a film that navigates so many changes so effortlessly with the four of you. Is something I think a bit mystical, a bit about chemistry, and I would love to know how you went about picking these three partners for your foursome.
Oh my gosh. When picking a foursome, it's important to call Penelope Cruz.
I mean, yeah.
If she says yes, you're fine. Everything will be fine. Everything is good. No, it was about finding people who were as excited about this approach as I was, because anyone who's ever tried to make a movie will know that it's about finding people who want to participate in the same process that you're interested in. Many people want to be in a good movie, but not everybody wants to do it the same way. And if you can find like-minded creative people who are interested in rehearsing for a couple weeks, really committing time they don't have. They're so busy. They're very busy professional people, but they gave real time to rehearsal and workshopping the script, and then to be on set every day for 4 weeks shooting together in order meant 100% engagement. These are people who could have easily said, I'm available for like 4.5 days and you can board all my stuff together and yada, yada, yada. We know that way of doing it. And I was like, I don't want to do that. This is the way I want to approach it. Who's interested? Are you interested? And they were immediately interested in that process. So selecting them wasn't necessarily like, oh, I think we would all make sense as couples in an apartment building. It was like, you guys are so brilliant. I'm so interested in how you would make this your own, each of you. And they were really authentically attracted to these roles on their own. I mean, Edward Norton called me, which is crazy. He was a huge fan of the original film, the Spanish film directed by Sesque, written and directed, based on his play. Edward had loved that movie, and when he heard I was doing this, he's like, man, I gotta be a part of it. I just tell me how you want me involved. And I was like, oh, I'd very much like you to act in it. and he became this major ally and champion of the film, and Seth and I had just done the studio together. And during the studio, we were shooting all night, and he was like, man, I'm never gonna act in anything else. I was like, yeah, totally, okay. But maybe one more thing. And he was interested in this process of workshopping, and Penelope, she just genuinely wanted to throw herself into this. So I was so moved by the fact that they wanted to become involved and work for no money and give up their time, and they just were so engaged. I mean, they'd come to work every morning and be like, I thought about it all night and I have ideas. And one example of that is one of my favorite anecdotes to tell, which is that the beautiful story that Edward tells in Act 3, Hawk's story, is all improvised. And it was in the script, it just had a slug line, Hawk's story. And he said, is it okay if I don't tell you my story until the cameras are rolling? And I was like, okay, but I'm paying for the film myself, so can you just tell me like how many minutes approximately it's gonna last? So we put a 1,000-foot mag on, and we just listened, and my reaction in the movie is just me hearing it for the first time. So that was the kind of process this was.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think I can handle that pressure. That's a lot. Especially with actors at this quality, I feel like the four of you have all carved very unique careers. And when I saw the cast list out of Sundance, I was like, what is this jambalaya gonna be? And it really works.
It's like casting Mad Libs. It's like, what?
But it totally works, and I buy every relationship. And what I particularly loved about this film is the way that you shift perspectives in who's sure of themselves in this relationship. Like Hawk and Peanut, you think are like ride or die, and then suddenly they're not, and you're like, oh, they have problems too, okay. And I think as someone who, sorry to my partner out there, I'm in my first like real adult relationship, and I didn't enter it till I was old. It's weird, relationships are weird, and I don't know how anyone had did it or when they were younger, you know, and didn't know themselves. So I love how honest this film is about how everything shifts, and you can love someone and hate them at the same time.
Yes.
So I'd love to hear sort of what, you know, drew you to this story, and what drew you to bringing these four actors together to tell this kaleidoscope of what it is to be a person in love and in hate, I guess.
Well, I'm so with you on the closeness between love and hatred, and the intensity of cohabitation, and the idea that you're going to try to blend and merge lives with someone, and what that evolves into, and I'm fascinated by all of it. The script that Rashida Jones and Will McCormick wrote, which was the adaptation of the Spanish film, I read that script and I was so immediately intrigued by the idea of telling a story about a relationship that might have gone on like that for so long, if not for these kind of disruptors. And I mean, the jury's out on whether or not Pina and Hawk are real. I'm curious what you guys thought. But the idea of what we are willing to put up with for so long out of a sense of what? Obligation? Surrender? We just kind of lean into it with the sense of, you know, what's powering us is basically inertia. And we forget, as Pina says, what we deserve. And I think the story offered this opportunity to have that conversation, to figure that out. Why do we forget we have agency in life and within our relationships? The other important factor of this was, for about 20 years now, I've been a real big fan of Esther Perel. And I read Mating in Captivity. It totally blew my mind. And I think a lot about her philosophy of, you know, what it means to be monogamous, what relationships are. I mean, it's fascinating to me. And when I read the script, I felt like it was ripe for that conversation. So I asked Esther to be a consultant on the film, and we would talk to her about the script, and Penelope would really have these long conversations kind of molding Pina after Esther. And it all just felt like this opportunity to really dig into potent questions that I, in my life, had really kind of wrestled over and thought a lot about. And I think they're some of the most important questions to ask ourselves in life. You know, are you living the life that you have chosen? Are you blaming your misery on someone else? And what do you actually deserve?
Yeah, that idea of agency is, and self-awareness, I think, is really potent in this film. I think my favorite line in it is when Pina says that we all want to either be desired or to desire. I think that's a really, because it's both. And it's not always with the person that, you know, it's like, I don't know, it's interesting to think about. Part of sharing yourself is sharing those desires, and sometimes you're ashamed of them, and sometimes you're not ashamed of them, but you still don't want to share. And you know, your character who likes to be seen. You don't necessarily want to have an affair, but you do like to be seen. And I think it's a really honest aspect of human, you know, foibles, I think.
Completely. I mean, in fact, she so doesn't want to actually have an affair that once she's presented with Hawk, she has no idea what to actually do with him and is terrified. But we all require some outlet for this very human quality of eroticism. And eroticism requires separateness of some kind, and creativity and curiosity. And it's such an integral part of who we are, but we sacrifice it out of a sense of shame most of the time, and obligation. There's this confusion between like love and merging. And, you know, these kinds of questions in relationships have only been sort of being asked for it's really since the advent of the women's movement. You know, before then there wasn't really a sense, before the pill, this wasn't really a question, you know? And I think that now we're only really 60 years into this conversation, and I think that audiences today are still, you know, it still feels like a bold thing to say, you know, maybe it's not better to stay together just for your kids. That really makes people uncomfortable. And many of us are kids of divorce, and that feels like, oh, trauma. But there's this need to at least have the conversation about what you're actually choosing to do and why, and how much of our choices are holdovers from generational expectations. And just giving people a reminder of their agency, really.
It reminded me of the scene where they're saying, like, is your kid better off in this, you know, hatred or
marinating?
It reminded me of
how Penelope does it, marinating.
It reminded me of the pop punk Blink-182 song "Stay Together for the Kids." Like,
right.
you know, I think that our generation is one of the first generations where we're starting to realize so many women, or so many men, were miserable. And they stayed miserable, and they passed that misery on. And, you know, divorce is only, as you said, recent. Like the ability for women to get divorced, for men to get divorced for whatever reason is still, you know, it's shamed, but it's at least legally easier now. But we're still thinking, oh, the kids will be better. And it's like, not in that house. I wouldn't want to grow up in that apartment.
Exactly, and the question being, you know, you're pretending like you're making this noble choice for your child, but you're not even willing to really work on this relationship. You're not even willing to take responsibility, accountability,
Yeah.
and the great point she makes is this relationship is over. There may be a chance for a new relationship with this person, but that takes a
You have to build it
tremendous
again.
amount of self-awareness, and that you will really investigate your contribution to this kind of shared misery that they have created together. What's fascinating to me is that so far, we haven't done a huge amount of screenings, but 50% of our audience has thought they stayed together, and 50% has thought they broke up at the end. I'm very
Do you wanna
curious.
raise your hand
Could
if
we
you
do
think
a
they
poll?
stay together?
Who thinks they stayed together at the end? A
Wow.
lot of people. Romantic Chicago. Okay, who thinks they did not stay together? Okay, also cynical Chicago.
Realist.
That's fascinating. And you know, we wanted it to be ambiguous.
Yeah.
Seth and I disagreed vehemently about the ending, about what happened to them. And you know, we played that demo of Our House at the end, which we're very lucky to have. It's the first time it's been licensed. And if anyone knows anything about Joni Mitchell and Graham Nash, you know, they were in love. They wrote that song, that was their song, and then they broke up. And it's sad. But what remains is that beautiful song. And this idea that in reality, sometimes that chapter is over is something that's very hard to stomach. And yet, it might be the path to new happiness for Joe and Angela.
Did you ever consider including the song that he writes?
Oh,
Yeah.
One Girl?
Yeah.
We thought
I mean,
it
I
might
love
be really
pop punk,
funny
so-
if at the end of the credits, One Girl music video came on and it was just like hard, like metal. Like crazy. But no, I like that you kind of make it up in your head. I
Yeah.
love that he can't bear to hear it
Yeah.
because it just is too triggering. And the idea that it's this kind of specter in their household of the song they don't listen to anymore. And
Yeah.
the moment she brings up that he was in the band and you see this like sheer hatred in his eyes because it's like this buried truth that they have agreed upon, and she
Yeah.
breaks that agreement.
And now he has to teach oboe.
And now he teaches oboe.
Which is actually not easy, so I see why he's miserable. I guess the last thing I wanted to ask is sort of, you crafted this film again that has this ambiguous ending, and I wonder what you hope this audience, and then all these audiences that will see this summer, what you hope they take or what they might think about themselves when they leave.
I guess my dream is that people consider the conversation they may have been afraid to have, whatever that is, and to be bold enough to have that conversation, even if it's just with themselves.
Yeah.
I think that in my life has been the most rewarding thing. And so I hope that the movie makes, it's been interesting, some couples have seen the movie and gone home and have told me they went home and had like the most incredibly like bonding experience and like really talked all night. And then some people are like, oh, that was really tough and we had this really intense night. Or some people say, I have to bring my partner to see it,
Yeah.
or I could never watch that with my partner. All of that is fascinating to me. I also love that young people have been loving this movie, like really young people, like teenagers.
Yeah.
And that fascinates me because it, for one, proves that like in general, like we underestimate the intelligence of young people and what they have the capacity for in terms of material, and like they have patience for like a pretty quiet ending. And, but it's also amazing to me because this is like a middle-aged love story and they still are into it. And I think that proves that it's not specifically about marriage. You could be so far from these people, and I still hope it forces you to think, am I living truthfully?
Yeah.
And am I taking responsibility for my own happiness? And if that was all people took from it, I'd be very happy. I also hope that it makes people watch the movies that so clearly inspired it. This is our love letter to Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, Bob Carroll, Ted Nallis. I mean, many of you recognize a lot of his influences. As Scenes from a Marriage. We really are honored to make this movie for people who I think really love to spend time watching relationship movies on film, and we are just acknowledging all the movies that led us here. So I hope people go and they're like, I want to watch all those movies again. That would be nice.
We need a series here now.
Yes,
pressure.
Mike Nichols' retrospective sounds right.
Don't forget, everybody, pick a foursome. You should just pick people you think are cute. Hey, we saw you across the, lobby. And go. There's a nice couch out in the garden, and you can talk.
Also, feel free to talk about this movie a lot, all the time. We are coming out against this tiny little obscure movie called The Odyssey.
It can be the Invitasity.
The Invitasity.
Yeah, let's make it happen.
Also Spider-Man. So we would love your help. Tell your friends.
Tell everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.